The epic showdown, Conor McGregor vs. Dustin Poirier, UFC 257, a tale of triumph, rivalry, and controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, gather around, for tonight I have a tale that has captivated millions of fans across the globe. It's a story of redemption, rivalry, and the kind of tension that can only be forged in the fire of the UFC octagon. This is the story of Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, a saga that spanned years and in 2021 came to a head in a clash that would rewrite their legacies. And like every good story, it's filled with highs, lows, and a dose of controversy. The beginnings, the first encounter. To understand the epic rematch between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, we have to look back to their first meeting. The date was September 27, 2014, and it was at UFC 178. A young, brash Conor McGregor was beginning his meteoric rise through the UFC ranks. The world had already started calling him the Notorious for his unfiltered trash talk, lightning-fast reflexes, and ability to finish fights with devastating precision. Meanwhile, Dustin Poirier was a rising star in the lightweight division, though not yet the polished fighter he would later become. In that first encounter, McGregor did what McGregor does best. He made a statement. In a fight that lasted just over a minute, Conor McGregor stunned Poirier with a devastating left hand, knocking him out in the first round. Poirier, though a skilled fighter, had no answer for the precision and power that McGregor brought to the cage. It was a clean, crisp win for Conor, and the world was watching. But Poirier, he wasn't done yet. This loss was merely a stepping stone in what would become a defining chapter in his career. The build-up, the rematch announcement, fast forward to 2020, a year marred by global uncertainty as the world grappled with the COVID-19 pandemic. The UFC, however, wasn't stopping. Fight fans were desperate for excitement, for a spark of energy, for something to take their minds off the chaos of the world. And UFC President Dana White delivered. McGregor, who had taken a brief retirement after his controversial loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov in 2018, decided to return to the octagon. And who better to face than the man he had already defeated nearly 6 years ago, Dustin Poirier. But this wasn't the same Dustin Poirier from 2014. This was a different Poirier, more mature, more focused, and a fighter who had built his reputation by conquering some of the most dangerous men in the lightweight division. Poirier had gone on to achieve notable victories over the likes of Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, and Justin Gaethje. By the time McGregor announced his comeback, Poirier was on a 3-fight win streak and was hungry for the opportunity to avenge his loss. The fight was scheduled for UFC 257 on January 23, 2021, and the stakes were higher than ever. The hype was building, with both fighters selling the fight in their own distinctive ways. McGregor was, as always, loud, confident, and brash, claiming that he would easily dispatch Poirier and show the world he was still at the top of the sport. Meanwhile, Poirier remained calm, collected, and determined, knowing this fight wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving that he had grown into a new fighter, one who had learned from his mistakes. Fans were eagerly anticipating this rematch, with the storylines almost writing themselves. McGregor's showmanship and bravado versus Poirier's grit and evolution as a fighter. It was a matchup that promised fireworks. The fight night, UFC 257, January 23, 2021. The night of the fight arrived, and the anticipation was palpable. The crowd in Fight Island was electric, and the fighters entered the octagon with the weight of the world on their shoulders. Conor McGregor, ever the showman, danced and taunted his way into the arena, wearing his trademark smile, while Poirier entered with the calm intensity of a man who had something to prove. The first round began, and McGregor wasted no time getting to work. His left hand, as precise and dangerous as ever, landed clean on Poirier's face, rocking him back. The fans watching were reminded of McGregor's speed and timing, and for a moment, it seemed like this would be another one of those nights where Conor would simply overpower his opponent. But Poirier wasn't fazed. He absorbed the shots and settled into a rhythm, showcasing his improved striking and resilience. It was clear that Poirier had learned from the past. As McGregor moved forward, Poirier was able to check his strikes, staying composed. The first round ended with McGregor having the upper hand, but Poirier wasn't out of it. He had shown he could withstand McGregor's power. And this was where the story truly began to turn. In the second round, Poirier's strategy started to unfold. While McGregor's jab continued to land, Poirier began to counter with a series of low leg kicks that started to affect McGregor's movement. It wasn't just any leg kicks. These were surgical, placed with precision to limit McGregor's mobility. McGregor, a master of footwork and movement, was now slowed, and his punches were losing some of the sting they had in the first round. And then, the turning point. Poirier's low leg kick landed flush on McGregor's lead leg, sending a shockwave up his body. McGregor's balance was compromised, and he started to favor the leg, clearly in pain. Poirier, sensing the opportunity, pounced. He followed up with a series of strikes that McGregor, unable to escape, couldn't avoid. The barrage of punches from Poirier on the ground was too much. McGregor, rocked and unable to recover, was stopped by referee Herb Dean, marking the first TKO loss in McGregor's UFC career. Dustin Poirier had done it. He had avenged his loss to McGregor, and in front of the world, he had proven that he was no longer the same fighter who had fallen to McGregor in 2014. It was a monumental victory, and Poirier's rise to the top of the lightweight division seemed inevitable. The aftermath, controversies, and reactions. But as with every great fight, there were layers of controversy that followed in the aftermath. Let's start with Conor McGregor. The loss was a bitter pill to swallow. McGregor, always the outspoken figure, wasn't one to shy away from speaking his mind. After the fight, McGregor did not immediately give Poirier the credit he deserved. Instead, he was quick to point out that the loss was due to a variety of reasons, including his inability to check the kicks and the injury to his leg that contributed to the outcome. On the other hand, Poirier, in his victory speech, was gracious and humble, praised McGregor's talent, but emphasized that the result was a reflection of his growth as a fighter. This showed a side of Poirier that many fans had grown to admire over the years, his maturity, sportsmanship, and humility. But there were also some controversial moments in the lead-up to the fight that didn't sit well with fans. One of the most discussed issues was the fact that Poirier and McGregor had been involved in a charity exchange before the fight. McGregor had promised Poirier's charity, the Good Fight Foundation, a donation of $500,000, a gesture that Poirier later revealed McGregor had failed to follow through on. This added fuel to the fire, creating tension and even bitterness between the two fighters in the build-up to the fight. Additionally, there was the post-fight drama. McGregor's team, which included coach John Kavanagh, claimed that McGregor had suffered a leg injury early in the fight, which hindered his performance. McGregor's supporters rallied around the idea that the loss was due to the leg injury rather than Poirier's superior strategy and execution. This narrative was echoed by McGregor in interviews, but many fans felt that McGregor was merely making excuses for his defeat, something that tarnished the victory for Poirier in the eyes of some. The legacy of UFC 257. As the dust settled and the fighters went their separate ways, Dustin Poirier's victory was a turning point in his career. It was a redemption story, a fighter who had once been knocked out by McGregor years ago, now standing victorious in the same octagon. Poirier would go on to earn a title shot, cementing his legacy as one of the best lightweights in UFC history. As for Conor McGregor, the loss marked a new chapter in his career. It was a humbling defeat, one that showed the world that no matter how great a fighter is, the sport is constantly evolving. McGregor, always the showman, would be back. He had no choice but to retool, refocus, and come back stronger for another chance at the top. But one thing was clear: the rivalry between McGregor and Poirier wasn't over. A rematch was inevitable, and the world would be watching, eagerly awaiting the next chapter in this epic saga. And so, my friends, that is the tale of Conor McGregor vs. Dustin Poirier at UFC 257, a story of rivalry, redemption, and controversy. It was a night that left an indelible mark on both fighters, and one that will be remembered by fans for years to come.